At my daughter's engagement party, her fiancé cornered me in the library and said, "Transfer $750,000 by Monday, or I'll make sure Emily never speaks to you again. I know things about your foundation that could destroy everything." I took a slow sip of champagne, set down my glass, and replied, "Dylan, before you continue, you should know that the man behind you recording this entire conversation is your former business partner, the one you embezzled from. He's been looking for you for 3 years." The color drained from Dylan's face as he turned around. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because the truth is always more complicated than the moment of victory suggests. The October afternoon was the kind that makes Boston beautiful, leaves turning gold outside my Beacon Hill townhouse, the kind of crisp air that smells like possibility. I was reviewing quarterly reports for the Hayes Family Foundation when Emily called. My daughter's voice had that breathless quality I hadn't heard since she was 16 and made varsity soccer. "Mom, I have incredible news. Can you meet me at Thinking Cup in an hour? It's important." "Of course, sweetheart. Everything all right?" "Better than all right. Just meet me, okay?" I arrived early, chose a corner table with good light. Emily rushed in at 3:15, her auburn hair windswept, cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. Behind her was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe 6'2", expensive haircut, tailored navy blazer over dark jeans. He had the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials, practiced and perfectly timed. "Mom, this is Dylan Carter. We've been seeing each other for 2 months and..." Her hand found his. "We're engaged." I felt my coffee cup pause halfway to my lips. 2 months. Engaged. My daughter, who'd always been cautious about relationships, who'd dated her college boyfriend for 5 years before they split, who'd been single for the past 3 years while building her career at the Youth Literacy Foundation. "That's wonderful, darling." I kept my voice warm, genuine, even as my instincts whispered careful. "Congratulations to both of you." Dylan's handshake was firm, confident. "Mrs. Hayes, Emily talks about you constantly. I'm so honored to finally meet you. She speaks so highly of your work with the foundation. Please, call me Margaret." I studied his face, looking for the markers I'd learned to read over 40 years in Boston real estate, the tells that separated genuine from performance. We talked for 20 minutes. Surface details. Dylan explained he was a tech entrepreneur, developing AI solutions for healthcare efficiency. He'd sold his previous startup for a substantial sum. He was passionate about Emily's work in literacy, saw synergies between education and technology. All the right words, all the correct enthusiasm, but something felt rehearsed, like he'd practiced this meeting in a mirror. When they left, Emily hugged me tight. "I'm so happy, Mom. Finally, someone who sees me, who understands what I'm trying to build." I drove home slowly, taking the long route past the Common. My late husband Thomas had always said I had good instincts. 40 years of deals taught me to trust the feeling when something didn't align, and something about Dylan Carter didn't align. That evening, I called Marcus Sheffield, a former client who ran a private investigation firm. "Marcus, I need background information. Completely confidential. Just basic verification." The next morning, over breakfast in my kitchen, I pulled up Dylan's LinkedIn profile. It looked impressive. Stanford MBA, founded 2 companies, board member of a healthcare tech consortium, awards, speaking engagements, articles in TechCrunch. I scrolled deeper. The photos were there, the accomplishments listed, but something nagged at me. The timeline felt compressed, too much achievement in too little time. Marcus called at noon. "Margaret, preliminary search is showing some concerns." Dylan Carter founded a company called MetaStream Solutions in 2019, listed himself as CEO. The company filed for bankruptcy in 2021, but that's not the interesting part. I sat down at my desk, pen in hand. "Go on." "There are no records of him selling any company for significant money. No acquisition records, no SEC filings, nothing. His LinkedIn says he sold Clarity Health for 8 figures in 2020. That company doesn't appear to exist in any database. I wrote carefully, underlining key words. What else? He has a judgment against him in California. Former business partners sued him for fraud and embezzlement. $200,000 awarded to the plaintiff. Dylan never paid. There's an active warrant for contempt of court. I felt ice settle in my stomach. And Emily has no idea. Presumably not. He's good at presentation. His social media shows the lifestyle. Expensive restaurants, networking events, speaking panels. But his actual finances, he's leveraged to the breaking point. Credit score in the low 500s. 3 maxed credit cards. After Marcus hung up, I sat in my study for a long time, watching autumn light slant through the windows. My daughter was 32 years old, independent, intelligent, passionate about her work. How do you tell someone they're wrong about love? I chose directness. Called Emily that evening, asked if I could take her to dinner. Just us. We met at Ostra on Wednesday night. Emily wore the pearl earrings Thomas had given her for college graduation. She looked radiant, happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. I waited until after appetizers. Emily, I need to talk to you about Dylan. I had someone run a basic background check. Her face changed immediately. You what? Just basic public records. Sweetheart, there are some serious concerns. He has an outstanding judgment against him for fraud. His company claims don't check out. He has significant debt. Emily's voice went cold. You investigated him? Like some kind of corporate spy? I'm trying to protect you. These are facts. He lied about selling a company. He has a warrant in California. She stood up, dropping her napkin on the table. I can't believe you. Do you have any idea how controlling this is? Dylan warned me you might react this way. I felt those words like a physical blow. He warned you? Emily, please sit down. Let's talk about this. But she was already grabbing her coat. I'm 32 years old, Mother. I don't need you vetting my life like I'm a teenager. Dylan is brilliant and kind, and he loves me. Something you apparently can't accept. The restaurant went quiet as she left. I sat there with 2 untouched entrees, feeling every one of my 64 years. The next 3 weeks were silence. Emily didn't return calls, didn't respond to texts. I left voicemails that started calm and ended pleading. Sweetheart, I'm not trying to control you. I'm scared for you. Please, just look at the documents I'm sending. Nothing. Complete radio silence. Marcus sent updated reports. Dylan had moved into Emily's Brookline condo. Emily's credit card showed charges at luxury retailers, expensive restaurants, a weekend in New York, all on her card. The engagement party invitation arrived on heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, November 15th at the Harbor Hotel. My daughter hadn't spoken to me in 3 weeks, but she'd sent an invitation. I called Marcus. Can you find Dylan's former business partner? The one who sued him? Give me a week. 5 days later, Marcus sent me contact information. James Chen, 42, software engineer, living in Seattle. I called that evening. Mr. Chen, my name is Margaret Hayes. I'm calling about Dylan Carter. The pause that followed was loaded. What's he done now? He's engaged to my daughter. She's about to invest money in his company. I've seen your lawsuit. James's voice went tight with old anger. Dylan and I founded MetaStream together in 2019. We were college friends. I put in $200,000, did all the technical work. Dylan handled business development, or so he said. What he actually did was create fake client contracts, fake revenue reports, and convince me to bring in outside investors. When those investors discovered the fraud, they sued. Dylan disappeared with the remaining funds. I've been looking for him ever since. Do you have documentation? Everything. Contracts, communications, bank records, depositions. I won the lawsuit. He owes me $217,000 with interest. Never paid a cent. I felt pieces clicking into place. Mr. Chen, would you be willing to come to Boston? I think my daughter needs to hear your story directly. His answer came without hesitation. When? The engagement party was November 15th. Beautiful venue overlooking the harbor, string quartet, champagne fountain. Emily had always dreamed of a party like this. I'd written the check for it without being asked, sent through her favorite event planner. I arrived at 7, wearing the sapphire dress Emily had always loved. She saw me come in, and for just a moment, her face softened. Then Dylan appeared at her side and she turned away. The party was full of her friends from the foundation, former colleagues, people who loved Emily. I made small talk, accepted congratulations, played the role of proud mother while my heart broke. At 8:30, Dylan found me in the library, a small room off the main ballroom where I'd retreated to catch my breath. He closed the door behind him. "Margaret, we need to talk." His voice was different now, the charm stripped away. All business. I set down my champagne. "All right. Emily's told me about the Hayes Family Foundation. 35 million in assets. Your late husband's legacy. Emily's set to take over as director next year." "That's correct. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer $750,000 to my company, Carter Innovations, by Monday. You're also going to recommend Emily resign from the foundation board and focus on being my wife. She doesn't need to work." I kept my voice level. "And if I refuse, then I'll make sure Emily never speaks to you again. I'll tell her you threatened me, that you're trying to destroy our relationship because you can't stand to lose control. I'll convince her to cut you out of her life completely." He leaned closer. "I know things about your foundation's tax filings, small irregularities that could raise questions. It would be a shame if those questions reached the IRS." I took a slow sip of champagne, let the silence stretch. Then I set down my glass and smiled. "Dylan, before you continue, you should know that the man behind you recording this entire conversation is your former business partner, the one you embezzled from. He's been looking for you for 3 years. Dylan spun around. James Chen stood in the doorway, phone held up, recording. The expression on Dylan's face cycled through shock, recognition, rage, and finally, panic. "Hello, Dylan." James's voice was cold, satisfied. "Nice to see you. Been a while." Dylan backed toward the window. "This is entrapment. You can't record without my consent." "Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state," I said calmly. "But this room isn't in Massachusetts anymore. See those windows? We're in an enclosed space, technically private property, and I've given permission for recording. More importantly, extortion and blackmail are crimes regardless of recording laws." James stepped into the room. "I've already sent this recording to the district attorney in California. There's an active warrant for your arrest, Dylan. They've been looking for you. Turns out you violated the terms of our settlement by leaving the state." Dylan's hand found the doorknob. "This isn't over." But it was. Emily stood in the doorway, her face white. She'd been standing there, heard everything. "Mom, what just happened?" Dylan tried to push past her. "Emily, this is all a misunderstanding. Your mother set me up." But Emily wasn't looking at him. She was looking at James. "Who are you?" "James Chen. I was Dylan's business partner. He stole $200,000 from me and destroyed the company we built together. I've been trying to find him for 3 years." I watched my daughter's face as reality reorganized itself. All the little inconsistencies she'd explained away, all the red flags she'd ignored because she wanted to believe, all of it crashed down at once. Dylan grabbed Emily's arm. "We're leaving. Now." She pulled away from him, her voice shaking. "Get out. Just get out." After Dylan stormed out, after the party cleared and guests left murmuring in small clusters, after the police had been called and statements taken, Emily and I sat alone in that library. She cried in a way I hadn't seen since her father died. The kind of crying that comes from betrayal, from discovering the person you loved was a fiction. "How did you know?" she finally asked. "I didn't know. Not for certain. but I had suspicions, and I've learned to trust my instincts." She looked at me, eyes red. "You were right about everything. The company, the debt, the lies." And I wouldn't listen. I pulled my daughter close. "You were in love, or you thought you were. That's not stupid. That's human." Over the next weeks, the story emerged in pieces. James had hired a forensic accountant who tracked Dylan through credit card usage, found his social media, discovered his engagement to Emily. When Marcus called, James had immediately agreed to help. The police investigation revealed Dylan had run similar schemes before. 3 previous relationships over 5 years, each targeting women with family money or inheritance, each ending with him disappearing once confronted. Emily was number 4. In early December, Dylan was arrested trying to flee to Canada, charged with extortion, fraud, violating restraining orders from previous victims. The trial wouldn't happen until spring, but the evidence was overwhelming. Emily threw herself into work at the foundation, channeling her energy into the literacy programs she'd always loved. One evening in January, over dinner at my house, she said, "I'm sorry, Mom, for not listening, for cutting you off. You don't need to apologize for trusting someone, but I do need to apologize for not trusting you. You've never steered me wrong, and I accused you of being controlling when you were just trying to protect me." I reached across the table. The hardest part of being a parent is knowing when to speak up and when to step back. I didn't handle everything perfectly. She smiled, small but genuine. "You handled it better than I did." In March, something unexpected happened. James Chen came to Boston for Dylan's sentencing hearing. Emily and I met him for coffee beforehand. "I wanted to apologize," James said, "for how this all went down. I was so focused on getting Dylan that I didn't think about how it would affect you." Emily shook her head. "You stopped him from destroying more lives. I'm grateful." Over coffee, they talked. Really talked. About the company they'd both lost to Dylan's lies, about starting over after betrayal, about learning to trust again. When James suggested dinner that evening, Emily surprised me by saying yes. The trial in April was almost anticlimactic. Dylan pleaded guilty to avoid longer sentencing. 5 years federal prison for fraud, extortion, and violating restraining orders. Restitution ordered to all 4 victims. His lawyer tried arguing for leniency, but the judge was unmoved. "Mr. Carter, you've run a systematic campaign of manipulation and theft for 5 years. You've caused immeasurable harm to people who trusted you. This court has no sympathy for calculated predators." After sentencing, Emily and I stood on the courthouse steps. It was the kind of beautiful April day that promises summer, sky clear and bright. "Are you okay?" I asked. She considered the question. "I'm getting there. Therapy helps, work helps." She paused. "James helps too." I'd noticed. Over the past 2 months, James had stayed in Boston. He and Emily had dinner twice a week. She smiled when she talked about him, a different kind of smile than she'd had with Dylan. Quieter, more real. "Take your time," I told her. "There's no rush." In June, the foundation held its annual gala. Emily gave a speech about resilience, about recovering from setbacks, about the importance of listening to people who love you even when you don't want to hear it. She mentioned her father, how he taught her to value character over charisma. Afterward, at the reception, James found me. "Mrs. Hayes, Margaret, can I talk to you?" "Of course." He seemed nervous, unusual for someone so confident in business. "I know Emily and I have only been seeing each other for a few months, and I know the circumstances of how we met were unusual. But I wanted you to know my intentions are serious. I care about your daughter, deeply, and I wanted to ask your blessing before I move forward with anything." I studied him. The earnestness in his face, the respect in his posture, so different from Dylan's practiced charm. "Have you discussed this with Emily?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. After everything with Dylan, I wanted you to know I'm different. I want to do this right." "James, I appreciate that. But Emily's the one who needs to make this decision. What I will say is that you've shown more integrity in 3 months than most people show in years. You could have exposed Dylan publicly, humiliated Emily in the process. Instead, you did it quietly, carefully, thinking about her feelings. That speaks to character. He smiled, relieved. Thank you. That means a lot. 6 months later, in December, James proposed. Not at a fancy party or public venue, but during a quiet walk through the public garden, snow falling softly, the kind of private moment Emily had always wanted. She called me immediately after, breathless with joy. "Mom," I said yes. "But this time, I'm taking it slow, long engagement, premarital counseling, and I'm running a complete background check." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. That's my girl. The wedding, when it happened the following autumn, was small. Close friends, family, the foundation board. Nothing like the engagement party for Dylan. This was intimate, genuine, full of people who truly loved them both. During the reception, Emily pulled me aside. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, for being willing to be the villain when I needed protecting." I hugged my daughter tight. That's what love does. It stands between you and danger, even when you push it away. 2 years later, I attended another event at that same harbor hotel. The Hayes Chen Family Foundation, newly formed, combining literacy work with technology education for underserved communities. Emily and James taught co-directors, their passion project born from both their expertise. During her speech, Emily told the story. Not all of it, but the important parts. How she'd almost lost everything to someone who saw her as an opportunity. How her mother had saved her. How sometimes the people who love you most are willing to be hated for your own good. The thing about revenge, she said, is that it's not about destruction. Real revenge, meaningful revenge, is building something better from the ashes. It's taking the worst moment of your life and turning it into purpose. I sat in the audience, watching my daughter, watching the foundation we'd built together carry on my husband's legacy, watching something new and good emerge from pain. Dylan was still in federal prison, 3 more years on his sentence. I didn't think about him often. He was a closed chapter, a threat neutralized. What I thought about instead was Emily's laughter as James whispered something during their speech. The way she'd become stronger, more discerning, more willing to trust her instincts. The way she'd learned that real love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about someone willing to show up quietly, consistently, with no ulterior motive, except caring about your happiness. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't destroying your enemy. It's watching the person you protected thrive, watching them become more than they were, watching them choose better next time. That night, after the gala, Emily and James came to my house for late dinner. We sat around the table where I'd reviewed those first background checks, where I'd planned my strategy, where I'd worried I might lose my daughter forever. James raised his glass. "To Margaret, who taught me that protecting someone sometimes means letting them think you're the enemy. To mothers who trust their instincts," Emily added. I raised my own glass, feeling my husband's presence in the room, proud of the family we'd built, the legacy we'd protected, to character over charisma, to taking the time to really know someone, and to second chances. We drank to that, to second chances, to building something real from the wreckage of lies, to the long, patient work of love that looks like interference until it reveals itself as salvation. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to protect someone you love from a manipulative person? How did you handle it? Let me know your experiences. To listen to the next story, click on the screen. Thank you for watching.